Hey everybody! So I haven't even had any tea. I don't even have sunlight coming in the room yet, but we're going to talk about show versus tell because I mentioned it on Twitter and you guys had a lot to say. I promised my advice was coming. It's here. I'm going to keep things a little on the short side just because there's so much to say. And I feel like maybe eventually I should turn this into a whole series and include it in a full-on workshop. So that should be fun. Why I hate the advice show, don't tell, or show versus tell, or anything that has to do with the two words show and tell in the same sentence together. Everyone always hears about the famous quote that says, don't tell me that the moon is shining, tell me how it glints off of the broken glass. Paraphrasing. Right off the bat, my problem with that is, what if your setting doesn't have anything to do with a piece of broken glass? Why mention it? See, the thing is, when you start going into telling show versus tell, you do a lot of things to your story that have no business being in your story. So let's break that down for just a second. What are the three things, if I could cram it into just three things, that I really hate about this advice? Or let's say not necessarily the advice, but the way the advice is talked about and applied. That's my problem. Number one, it leads to purple prose. If you don't know what that means, purple prose is when you are so flamboyantly crazy with your writing that it's just over the top ridiculous, like shiny Broadway. You stuck rhinestones and glitter on it. It's over the top. It's bad. Purple prose would be like saying, okay, I'm looking at my Christmas tree right now and there are ornaments on it and they're shining. And I could say something about how the light from the ceiling is catching on the ornaments and reflecting back the rest of the room. Okay, that's not bad. But in an attempt to make it very showy, because some people feel pressure to make simple things like that very showy, even though saying that the light is reflecting the rest of the room back in the face of the ornament is actually, for something I came up on the fly, that's a decent sentence. And I don't really think it has show and tell problems. But if one was feeling a lot of pressure to make that sentence very showy, they may go over the top and say that the light refracted in 1,000 prisms to reflect in the grandeur of the room to shine the proportion of the rest of the setting in a very warm, glowy, Christmassy carol kind of good feely way. Like, stop. That's a little much. I know it's gonna sound crazy to some of you. Like, that's gonna sound like a no-brainer. Why would somebody write all that stuff? My toddler's messing with the light. Why would someone write that much about one little thing? Well, because that's what people do when they get advice and they don't know how to apply it, and I see it a lot. Number two, I don't like this advice because it confuses people into thinking that they are not allowed to use adverbs or adjectives. It's part of speech. It's part of a good sentence. Why in the world would you limit adjectives and adverbs? I don't understand. Like, can someone please explain to me how this helps something? Like, why? Why would you just cut yourself off from part of the English language? Or whatever language you're writing in. It's sad. I love adjectives and adverbs. They add so much color to your prose. And I think the proper way to talk about show versus tell, if we have to keep calling it that, if you are focusing on how to write your sentence appropriately, then everything is going to fall into place naturally without you really having to try very hard. Number three, and this is the biggest one for me, so I don't know why I didn't say it as number one, but hey, we saved the best for last. I hate how the application of this advice is pushed onto problems that have nothing to do with show versus tell. People look at their stuff or look at somebody else's stuff and make this proclamation that, oh, there's a show versus tell problem. And I look at it and I'm like, it's something completely different. Like I said at the beginning, if someone is explaining to me the way the moon is shining in the broken glass on the ground, me as an editor, if it's not relevant to the scene, I'd probably tell them to cut it. For example, when someone comes to me with something that they've been told that they have a telling problem, I read it, yes, it is very telling, but transforming those sentences to show something is not going to help because the bigger problem is just their level of skill. Beginner writers are very telling. And you can start out being a really great writer. That is rare. Most of the people start out and they write a story that is very telling. And what I mean by telling is not even what I most often hear in the matter of show and tell. What I mean is that it's very wooden. It doesn't have a flow. They're simply just stating what's happening. And yes, in some places, I guess applying some general show versus tell advice could help, but there are just bigger issues. Their dialogue needs some flow. The structure of their sentences and their paragraphs needs to have a little bit more variation in the length of their sentences, the way they write their sentences. There's a big difference between this is Spot, see Spot run fast, and then saying, here's my dog Spot, he's a really cool dog. We got him last December and this is how big he is. He's grown so much. Like, now I have a story. Instead of just knowing that this is Spot run fast, I know who Spot belongs to, how much he means to them people when they got him. Especially with first drafts, you're going to have that problem. Because I think when you just word vomit your story, a lot of the times you're hitting on the highlights because you want to get the story out. That's fine. That's good. Sometimes getting stuck in editor mode while you're writing can bog things down. So if you have to word vomit like that, that's probably a great thing. Because then you at least get it on paper and you can go back and fluff it up. And when you go back, you're going to see that there are lots of places where you're hinting at something that is going on, but you've not vividly painted the picture yet. And it's gonna look like what someone would typically call a show but don't tell problem. But your reaction to that should not be to immediately throw in description over every little thing and take out all the adjectives and the adverbs, because you're not there yet. If you're working on a first draft or even like a second and third draft where you're still just trying to make the story come to life, you are not at the point where you're going to break down your sentence and look for the structural integrity of the noun versus the adjective. You're still trying to just get out of your head what's even happening. There is a lot more you need to do. In editing, this is what we would call the developmental edit versus the copy edit. You are still bulking up your story. Technical issues, sentence by sentence, might not matter at that point. So when someone comes to me with a draft that is very wooden and they want me to teach them show versus tell, I'm like, you're not even there yet. Like, there's so much more that we have to go over. Like, tell me about your character. Like, there's this blank piece of paper that you have doing things in this scene. I don't know anything about them. Why does this scene even matter to them? Why are they in this situation? There's so much that needs to be developed with the character and the plot that if you could pay attention to that, it would help the tell problem way more than if you just sentence by sentence focused on how to make something a little more showy. Also, this is going to be a very unpopular opinion. Please don't hate me. I've worked with people who try so hard to pull advice from books and people and classes, and it still falls flat. Like, no matter how many times they revise, there's something that just falls flat. To them, I would not say quit. No. What I would say in that situation is put the book aside, the book that you revised 15,000 times because you want to get it right, because you want to submit it and you want to get it published. Put it aside. That's where you have been learning. That's where you have been struggling and forcing yourself to learn. And it's probably most likely not going to be something that ever needs to exist in the world because that was your learning time. Now start fresh with your new perspective and your new knowledge and pour it into something different. You have to evolve. If you are stuck in a book and you're still trying to make it work, there's so many parts of that book that began in the mindset of old you that you can't erase unless you just completely started the entire book over. And I mean, some people are crazy enough to do that, and kudos to you. I'm probably actually one of those people. But my advice to all people all the time is you need to be writing a lot. Like, not just your book. I'm not saying you need to write a lot of words and put out a lot of books. I'm saying you need to write a lot of different things because that's the only way you push yourself to learn how to write. And if you can learn how to write in different mediums and explore different things and push yourself out of your comfort zone and learn something just for the technical skill of it and not just because you feel like it will make all the things that you do write because you feel like it that much better. I promise you. Okay, tangent over. Let's go into the advice that I think is worded a little bit better and maybe hopefully makes a little more sense to everybody. This is literally what I have written in my notes right here beside me. I wrote, don't just state the basics of a scene. I guess that would be telling. Tell us, I'm reversing this a little bit. Tell us the details that show the character, the emotion, and the reason why you're even saying it. So instead of show versus tell or show don't tell, what I'm saying is that what you tell, because as you're telling a story, you can't just not tell. Like, let's stop villainizing this piece of vocabulary. You're telling a story. As you tell the story, you should be showing certain things. In my head, this is not a matter of like description and adjectives and all that hoopla, blah, blah, blah. No, what this is, you want to be sure that in whatever you are writing in your sentence is showing the reader something that is happening, who it's happening to, and why. Let's take a simple text that I would probably send to my husband at some point during the day. He says, hey, what's up? How are you guys? And I say, hey. I just put Ellie, our littlest, in the bathtub. She's having fun. So I'm sitting here relaxing. Okay, pretty simple. The kid is in the tub. I'm sitting here relaxing. Well, we don't know where I'm sitting. We don't know how I'm relaxing. Am I just staring at the wall? The kid is in the bathtub. We don't know if the kid is happy. We don't know what she's doing in the tub. So in this situation, if I wanted to take that scenario and write about it and wanted to give it more life, I could talk about, yes, I was rubbing my face because my child wouldn't stop screaming. And so I thought, as a last minute resort, I'm chucking your butt in the bathtub. So I go and take her and put her in the bathtub. And on the way, she's squealing with glee, and I'm thinking, thank God, I'm finally going to be able to have a moment of peace. And I put her in the tub, and she's immediately splashing in the water and throwing her toys everywhere. There's water on the floor because she's really getting into it. So I sink down on the rug and pull out my phone and start scrolling Twitter to just shut off my brain. Okay, obviously I wouldn't write it exactly like I just said it, but you get this idea of how I'm expanding it. So now you don't just have the toddler in the tub, you have the toddler going from screaming to happy. So you understand there was a transition that happened. So the scene has went from tense to not tense. There has been an evolution in the emotion of both characters. And you understand that the reason why that the toddler is in the bathtub and the character is sitting on the floor relaxing is because obviously the moment before was very stressful. So this is a second for everyone to breathe. And anybody that reads that has been in a similar situation is going to automatically feel the difference in the scene. So why would it be so important to show the transition in the scene? Well, number one, movement. You have to have movement in your plot. So in adding all that extra detail, my problem wasn't that I needed show don't tell. My problem was that I needed to show the characters moving from one place to another physically and emotionally to keep the plot going. And then that also gives us some character development as we see how the characters react to the different situations. They obviously were not reacting well previously, and now that they are in the bathroom situation, everyone seems a little bit more chill. Why do we need them chill? I don't know. Maybe the person's getting on their phone to have a hard conversation with somebody. Maybe they were so frustrated because the person was trying to talk to somebody on the phone and the toddler was screaming. And in that moment, the mom was torn between trying to figure out, do I take care of my kid or do I finish this conversation? Do I take something for myself or do I just give to this child and shut myself up in this room and just listen to screaming? What do I do? What will take care of both of us? You can get all of that just by expanding the bare bones of there's a toddler in the bath and I'm sitting here on my phone. When you expand that to add the growth, the movement, the plot, the emotion, That's when it comes to life. So instead of show, don't tell, or show versus tell, I would say anywhere where your story is stating a tiny glimpse of what you're thinking in your head, finish conveying what's in your head. We have a way when we write quickly, or when we're writing not very focused, we have a way of only putting down the details that get us to the next sentence before we forget where we were even going with it. I do that a lot. And I used to struggle with that, but I'm getting a lot better at it. It's really hard for me to turn off my editor brain and write, but I'm getting better at that. Just throw down some words that indicate where you were going and then just keep going and move along, so that way at least you have something written. And when you go back and revise, I feel like some of those pieces stick around. Like we miss spots, we miss places where we needed to polish up the bare bones of it and put some meat and muscle on it. And those are the places that get targeted by people as being a little too telling. And really what it is that you need to go back and bulk it up with some reason and intention. In all things that have to do with writing, that is my ultimate response. You can phrase it however you want. You can couch it in writing advice you've read on blogs or heard from people. And I'm not saying any of this advice is really bad. I think it's said with the best intention, and some people are able to apply it very well. Some people explain it very well, and it clicks. But for me, I like to tell people, okay, just get all of it out of your head. Just breathe for a second and think, what are you saying? Why are you saying it? It's that simple. If you don't have a reason for why, and you don't know what it is that you want to tell us, that's gonna make everything in your text struggle. To go back to the original quote of don't tell me the moon is shining, tell me how it reflects on, what is it? Let me just read the stupid thing. Don't tell me the moon is shining, show me the glint of light on broken glass. If you're writing a scene, just to use the example, where there is moonlight and there is glass, don't tell me about the light in the glass unless the glass matters, because otherwise my reader brain is going to be like, why is there broken glass on the ground? Is it because you're just in a creepy part of town or wilderness where there's like broken beer bottles or something on the ground, and it's just a place where you gotta be careful where you walk or you're gonna catch a disease on something? Or is there broken glass because you were outside and you had a fight with somebody, and or is this a war and somebody has something that's glass in a war? See, that doesn't make sense. Like you have to have things that make sense. I have to be able to figure out what you're saying and why you're saying it. If you take nothing else from this video, please take that. If you have a show don't tell concern with your story, look at your sentence, figure out what it is you're wanting to say, why you want to say it, and say that. So where might you find these problems in your story? How would you know you have an issue of not properly conveying what's going on and why? I think the most recurring issue I see in manuscripts would be when it comes to moments of emotion. Jamie was frustrated. Okay, why? What? Am I frustrated because this tea is so bloody hot that like I can't really drink it without burning my mouth? Am I frustrated because I've been wanting to talk about this stuff with you guys for like forever, but it's just the hardest thing for me to convey because I have so many emotions about it and I go off on so many tangents? People, why am I frustrated? Why? I need to have reason. Okay, obviously you're going to be able to tell from context. Sure, fine, whatever. But what can you, I want to be in the character's head. I really want to understand why the character is frustrated. I don't want to just assume it. I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me why she's frustrated. Now, obviously the advice is given that instead of saying that somebody's frustrated, show them clenching their fists. Show them pulling their hair. I don't know, that's a little extreme for frustrated. Show them doing something that tells us that they're frustrated. Okay, fine. Yeah, you can do that. But you can also show me that the character is frustrated by, like, showing what frustrated her. Say I'm in an argument with somebody and I get frustrated because they completely glossed over everything I said. You can convey that in so many more ways than simply saying I balled my fist like a toddler with a tantrum. You can have character A in the middle of saying something extremely important that means a lot to them. You can explain how it's very hard for them to open up, but they're attempting it anyways. And then in the very middle of the sentence, structurally use your punctuation to cut them off and have the other character talk over the top of them about something completely irrelevant to what that character just said, or it's relevant in their mind, but it glosses over what the character was trying to convey to them. That's very effective. That's much better than just showing me with my fists, okay? When showing becomes this dramatization of physical attributes, I get really angry. Because the moment you take adults in a book or teens, a lot of this advice doesn't really apply to anything lower than YA, just FYI, because young readers process things differently and they need things communicated differently. Obviously, a toddler would really love here's spot, see spot, run. So that's not what we're doing here. When you have adults or teens in a book and you are describing them physically in ways that just make me picture little kids throwing emotional fits, I don't like that. And when it comes to emotion, so many of the times, that's what I see. Bald fists, furrowed brow, she grimaced. Like, if I'm frustrated, that's not exactly how I'm going to react. Think about what you would do in that moment. How many of you ball up your fists or sigh very deeply when you're frustrated? Think of something that's a little more unique that maybe not everyone has done, but they can picture themselves doing it because it's a mature adult thing to do. We're not showing just emotional body language. We're showing a lot with punctuation, with the thoughts in the character's head, with the tension we've put into the room, and with the progression of, okay, there's yelling, now there's silence, there's a contrast there, that shows movement. These are the elements that you can play up that help things come across in a more vivid way that doesn't just state the bare bones, but puts on some skin. Similarly, I feel like we also get this problem when there's action involved. Your character walks in the door. They drop their keys off on the table beside the door. They walk into the kitchen. They get them something to drink. They decide that they want to go get changed out of their clothes from wherever they were. So they go and they change clothes. And they think, oh, well, maybe I'll take a shower. And then after their shower, they decide to sit down and read a book. Okay. The problem here, yeah, you're just stating things, very telling. But the problem here is, like I said, why? Why are they doing these things? What's going on with them internally as they do them? If you're depicting a character walking into their house and transforming from the previous scene to something more relaxed or different, why are we seeing them there? They're alone. So unless you strike up like a text conversation or someone comes over or somebody calls or something happens in the house that they didn't expect, like there's an intruder, talk about a thriller. If you are simply just following your character to show some sort of internal progression or emotional conflict, then put that in there. You can't just say what they're doing without adding that. So whatever your purpose is, make it very clear and be creative and have some flair with it too, you know? Again, how you structure sentences matters. Character walks in the door, puts down their keys, takes off their clothes. It's all very stilted. And a scene like that where you're just going from one room to the next with one action to the next can be very monotonous and boring. And if you vary your sentence structure, where for every place that the character goes, there's some sort of reflection or inner monologue. Say you have a girl going into the bathroom and she's gonna brush her hair because it's been a long day at work. Let's say she's a nurse and she's had her hair like really tight in a ponytail, and she takes it down and she's massaging her scalp because it hurts. She picks up the brush and she goes to brush her hair, and like the brush breaks, which honest to God does happen. As any girl, we have broken brushes, okay? She breaks the brush and instantly just bursts into tears because she's so on edge with her nerves. That was the thing that just set her off. And so she sits there, and even though it's dumb and it's just a broken brush, she starts crying. That's a great way to use the actions in the scene to progress what's going on with your character, since they have no one else in the scene to interact with, to bounce off with dialogue, to be influenced by. When you're in a scene with a lot of action and your character is alone, take that time to use those actions. Give everything in the scene life. Don't just have description and character thoughts in isolation from each other. Have them work together to create movement and flow in your scene and have something actually happen. Also, yes, when you do have adjectives and adverbs, that is a place where you might be able to push your sentence to visually be more vibrant. Not gonna lie. But as I said before, that doesn't make them bad. That doesn't mean you should just chop all of it out. Places where I think it works really well when that part of the sentence is not your focal. Say I want the focal point in a scene in my kitchen to be that the character burns the toast. So while she's preparing the toast, she's also starting a kettle for tea. She has two things going on. She has the tea going on, she has the toast going on. But remember, the focus is the toast. So when I mention the tea, it's perfectly okay to say that I quickly grabbed the tea and moved it to the other part of the counter, or something like that. Something with the tea happened. It's fine to kind of gloss over that so that you can immediately jump into how the toast came out burnt, and now she's cursing herself and she's mad because she ruined her toast and she's going to have to go get more slices of bread and start all over again. If that's your focal point, then the other details that support it can be glossed over a little bit more with some adjectives. But let's say that the focus is the tea. And I don't want to say that I just quickly grab the tea, or in my haste, I quickly grab the tea and knock it over. There's not really anything horribly wrong with that sentence. It's a fine sentence. And I think that's one thing that's key, is not all sentences that could be improved upon are bad. It's just you can always take things up another level. So in my haste, I hurriedly grabbed the tea. Or we could say I glanced at the clock and saw how late I was, so I reached out to grab the tea and knocked it over and spilled tea all over the counter and on myself, and it burnt, and I had to go change my blouse, which made me even more late, so that when I went out the door, I forgot to lock it. That shows hurriedness without ever saying haste or quickly. So I took out the descriptors and put in more nouns and verbs. That is the little bit that got me so inspired in class and made me tweet about how excited I am to talk about show versus tell. Because when people try to fix their sentence when they have adjectival problems, they don't know what to do. Because how do you take out your descriptor and still have things described in your sentence? What do? Focus on nouns and verbs. The more nouns and verbs you can chuck in there, the more you have happening. And the more you have happening, the more you are telling us the show that's playing out in your head with this character. So we took out haste and we took out quickly, and instead we inserted actions that showed that obviously I was in a hurry. I checked the clock. I didn't like what it said. I hit the cup of tea and knocked it over. Obviously that insinuates that I was rushing. And then the fact that I got upset and had to change my blouse, and that made me even later, and I forgot to do something important, shows my frame of mind. Without ever saying that I am this crazy, busy, harried person that feels insane. Throwing off a blouse and putting on another one and going out the door and forgetting something tells a lot about what's going on in your character's emotional state without actually getting bogged down in stating simple emotions. So to bring my main advice into this one little nugget that you can take with you, as I have said a lot, what is happening and why? But now let's add on Tell me what's happening and why, primarily with your nouns and your verbs. And in the moments where you are using adjectives and adverbs, either put it in a spot that is not the primary focus, or when you do use it, make sure it's serving a very strong purpose. Ask yourself if there's any way you can possibly say it better. And if you don't think you can, then leave it in there. It's fine. It's good. I'm sure it's a great sentence. There's nothing wrong with the sentence. The question is not whether there's something wrong with it. The question is whether you can make it better. And if the answer to that is to leave your adjective in there, then don't worry when someone tells you that adjectives are bad. You just not listen to them. Oh my gosh, you guys, you've got to tell me if any of this made any sense whatsoever. So many people are wanting to hear what I have to say about this on Twitter. I hope you guys will interact with me on this and talk to me about it. You know I'm open to DMs on Twitter. I have my email. Like, find me and talk to me because I would love to discuss this. Anybody who has any questions about what I said or has any contrasting view, first off, be nice. And second off, let's talk about it. I love when people expand on things I say in a way that encourages more dialogue and provokes me to think things that I didn't previously remember to mention. There's only so much I can say in the space of a video. If you guys have more to add on that, that just makes this that much more educational. If you have something contrasting to say about it, then that just makes it all the more interesting. I think everyone comes at this with a different perspective, different experience. They've heard the advice in many different ways. And I think it's only through dialogue about it that we start to have a cohesive image of what it is that we're talking about and what we're dealing with and what to do about it. I got up early for you guys to do this. So please don't leave me hanging. Talk to me. If you want to see more ranting from me concerning things that have to do with developmental editing, I have some stuff here. I'm not currently super regular with my content because, well, it's December and I'm a December babe and I love all things Christmas, so I'm kind of focusing on family and wrapping up some classes, and I have so many projects on my plate, so I'm not super regular with posting. But the new year, hopefully I can get on a schedule to start promising you guys specific dates. So that way you know when things are coming. You can also subscribe, obviously, and follow, so that way you know when things are coming. And of course, if there's nothing else you do today, at least write some words for me, for the world.